what I'm going to be talking about at the conference is how to really integrate a lot of this automation and stuff, not to replace that personal touch. Because my personal belief is that with where we're going with technology, where we're going with AI, the art of personal connection is going to be lost, because people online, they're not going to know if it's an AI video of you and me doing this podcast, if it's even our voices doing it. So this is my thoughts, that a lot of business is going to start swinging the other way, meaning people are going to want to meet in person, shake hands, do it the old school way. Now, with that being said, I still think there's a time and place for all this technology.
Hey guys, I wanted to take a moment to personally invite you to join me March 2024 right here in beautiful Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm going to be speaking at the Conscious Investor Growth Summit. It is going to be an awesome event, and I have the honor of speaking alongside over 20 speakers on health, wealth, and mindset. This event is surely going to be pivotal for not only your year, but also your life. It would mean the world to me to connect with you, so make sure that you grab your ticket today at consciousinvestorgrowthsummit.com. And if you use my name, Erik, you're going to get 50% off at checkout. I hope to see you there. Keep changing the world. Dallon, you're a husband, you're a dad, you're the president and co-founder of Rev Real Estate, Rev Equity Group, and so much more. We're going to be speaking together at the Conscious Investor Growth Summit in Coeur d'Alene, March 7th through the 10th. So pumped to meet you in person, dude. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to this, Erik, and I'm glad you reached out, man. So
yeah, dude, so excited, man. So excited. I like to kick my show off by going back a bit. Like, where did you grow up, and what was childhood like for you?
So I grew up in upstate New York. When I tell people New York, they think of the city, but I think I need to make a public service announcement here. New York City is minimal compared to the size of the rest of the state of New York. So grew up in the country. Nice. Graduated with 87 kids in my high school in my senior class. Grew up on 100 acres of land with all the family on my dad's side. So my cousins, aunts, uncles, it was a blast. So had a lot of fun, and grew up actually around real estate. My grandfather owned quite a bit of apartment buildings, and my father managed them, but I was doing all the dirty work. And so my view of real estate was skewed. I was like, if this is real estate, this sucks, and I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So, but it was great. It taught me good work ethic and some basic handyman skills, if you will, just around just real estate and projects. But very normal, typical childhood. You know, nothing too extreme.
Yeah. Oh, nice, man. Well, and growing up on 100 acres, I mean, that's amazing, dude. And that's like my dream, right? To have the 100 acres. I grew up and had 5 acres as a kid, and it was just a blast, man. So much fun. Going on, living off the property, like, what was some of those big memories, those favorite memories of you living on that much property?
Oh gosh. So I had 2 cousins my age, and we did everything together. Skylar and Cody were their names. And we grew up on quads. We had 4-wheelers. And when you have 100 acres of land, we would just, we'd blaze trails, and I live in Arizona now. Everybody here has a pool. Back in New York, hardly anyone has a pool. We all have ponds. We dig out ponds. And so just swimming and riding quads and snowmobiling during the winter, pulling tube sleds. We found anything we could to just entertain ourselves. And where we were at, there a lot of rolling hills. Nice. I remember specifically my uncle found this janky metal frame downhill goat cart. I don't even know where he got it from. And we couldn't find any rope to tow it with behind the 4-wheeler. So we found a spool of electrical wire that was sitting in my uncle's garage. And we just like Jimmy rigged this tow strap to this goat cart to the 4-wheeler, and we were just ripping through the fields with that thing. Oh man,
that is awesome.
A lot of fun, and definitely as a kid took it for granted. And now that I'm older and I have kids of my own, and we live in the city, I'm like, man, I want acreage. Man, I wanna get out. So
I told my wife and kids that, look, here's the next move that we make. If I can't pee off my front porch, my neighbors are too close. Right. Like that's the next goal for me, though.
There you go.
I mean, you go from ER nurse to real estate investing. That's quite a big jump. And I'm sure you had a lot of folks saying, don't do that. That's, you don't want to do that. Like, why did you decide to buy that initial fourplex and get into real estate investing?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I grew up around real estate. I grew up
Right.
around apartments, multifamily, and I always liked the idea of it, but I didn't want to be in the grind of it.
Yeah.
And part of that was because of the stuff I was stuck doing, unclogging toilets, changing sink drains, shingling, doing all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I always have had a desire to serve people. And so naturally, the medical field attracted me to it. And I had heat in the winter and I had air conditioning in the summer. So I thought it was going to be a pretty sweet gig. And I wanted
Yeah.
to specialize. I wanted to get in. I wanted to specialize. I wanted to be a nurse anesthetist, make a few $100,000 a year, and then start buying some of my own real estate when I
Gotcha.
was in my 40s, 50s. Like that was my vision. But a few months into that career, a couple things happened. One, I realized this isn't what I thought it would be. And this idea of all this service and doing good, it's just drowned underneath the bureaucracy of working in hospitals. Like most hospitals, a lot of hospitals are nonprofits. They're ran just like any other corporation, and it's just
Sure.
a lot of inefficiencies.
Yeah.
And so that happened pretty early on. But the catalyst, if you will, was an unfortunate accident I got into playing soccer. I actually broke my tibia, which is the shin bone.
Oh,
And
whoa.
that's your weight bearing bone. So you got
Yeah.
two running down your legs. Your tibia is your shin bone. That's the biggest one to break in the lower part of your leg. And I remember sitting in the emergency room that I worked at while my friends were taking care of me, my coworkers,
Oh no.
and just feeling scared, trapped, lost almost, because my wife and two kids were depending on me financially, and you
Yeah.
can't work in an emergency room with a broken leg.
Right.
When you're
Wow.
running through traumas and codes and running back and forth from patients on crazy times, you just couldn't do it. So that really scared the hell out of me financially, and just like, what am I doing? Like, if I want to get into, like, if this happens again, what am I going to do? How am I going to
Right.
provide for my family? So that really got the gears. That got the gears turning for me. And since I was couch ridden, I couldn't do anything with a broken leg. I started listening to podcasts. I started reading books. I said, I've got nothing else to do. Why don't I just start learning about
Yeah.
real estate? So got into some podcasts. The first podcast I ever listened to around real estate was called the Real Estate Guys Radio.
Okay.
And started listening to them, and they kept talking about this purple book, this Robert Kiyosaki guy. Anyone in real estate, a lot of people in entrepreneurship are familiar with Robert Kiyosaki. So I decided to pick up the book. So best $7 I've ever spent in my entire life.
Right.
And I'm not a reader. The only time I read was for books that were required for school or education.
Nice.
Like, that was it. So this was probably the first book I've picked up in a long time to read for leisure for myself.
Sure.
And something flipped in my brain.
Mm.
And 2 weeks after reading that book, we bought our first fourplex without any of our own money. And that's when I realized that the only limitations I had in getting into real estate later on in life, those were self-imposed. I didn't have to wait till I was making a few $100,000 a year. I didn't have to wait till my 40s, 50s, 60s to get into real estate. And so it really opened up my mind to what truly is possible.
Hey, this is a quick shout out from one of our awesome sponsors. Check this out. Thank you to Tracy down at Tranquil Turtle Massage in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Look, my wife and I, we see Tracy and her team every single month for a couples massage, and it is the best thing. Tracy is a master massage specialist and a Hanu Ashiatsu trainer. You need to reach out to Tracy and her team. Make sure that you tell them that I sent you, and you'll get $25 off your next massage. Also, while you're there, check out CDA Brows, Body, and Ink. Make sure to tell Tracy that I sent you, and you'll save $100 on your next tattoo brows and plasma tightening services. Man, huge. And you talked about it briefly there, but like, I mean, you buying property with OPM or other people's money. I think there's a lot of folks out there that don't understand this. They don't know about this. How does that work? And what challenges are you running into when you're doing that?
Yeah, so that was the first two deals we bought were just full disclosure, were the only deals that we bought with 100% other people's money. Every
Sure.
other deal we started putting our stuff into, our own capital into. But to be honest, I didn't know what I didn't know. Like the opportunity just kind of presented itself. We got into that deal. The owner owned it outright, and he talked about doing a seller carryback. I was like, great. What's a seller carryback? I had no idea what it was. And for those listening that may not be as familiar, it's when the owner will basically loan you the money. So rather than getting a mortgage or a loan from a bank, you're paying that owner interest on a certain amount of the property. So he did that, and we only had to bring, I think it was like $25K to the table, which we didn't have. So I had a family member that was in real estate, my grandfather, actually. I mentioned him at the start of the show.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, here's this opportunity. Here's what the numbers look like. He's like, great, let's work out a deal. So he actually loaned us the money. And so we were 100% leveraged. I would not recommend that to anyone getting into real estate. Like one little thing goes wrong and you're up a creek.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how it worked out. And I just figured it out as I went, and I didn't know that that's not typical. Like it happened so quick. I was like, it gave me a false sense of how real estate can really go, to be honest. But I think that's what I needed to create that catalyst, that movement in transitioning out of the medical field and into real estate full time. And it didn't happen right away. It took about a year and a half after that first deal.
Gotcha.
Before I jumped in.
Man, what? I love that, dude. That's cool that your grandpa was willing to leverage or give you guys some money on that too, man. That's awesome. One of the things I noticed when I was looking at your website and looking what you got going on is it's really important to build that dream team. Like for you, like how do you identify top talent? What things are you looking for in folks when you're like trying to attract them to your team?
I heard this quote a while back, and I agree with it. And it's, this person was saying that they hire for attitude, not for experience. And I mean, with a small caveat, like you have to have people that know what they're doing, right? Yeah. Like that's pretty obvious. But if I have somebody with a great attitude, they embrace the vision, they see and know where we're going, and they want to be a part of it, versus somebody that has the experience but just a piss poor attitude, it's not even a competition for me, because experience can be learned as long as you have the right person in the right seat. And I think that's where most business owners get caught up. So for example, I grew up playing soccer. That was my sport.
Okay.
And I was a defender, a center mid defender. And that's where I thrived. That's where my role was. That's where I thrived. I did a phenomenal job there. You put me up at the striker or the forward position and asked me to try to score a goal, I looked like a horrible soccer player. And not only did I suffer from that, but the team would as well.
Yeah.
But same thing, you take a striker and you put them in my position, then they struggle. And they don't look like that good of a player because their performance is poor, or they're not playing to their strengths, when in reality they could be the best player on the field. They're just in the wrong position. Yeah. So we look for the attitude, and then we also really try to identify that person's individual strengths and weaknesses. And there's, before I partner with anyone or bring them on the team, they take this personality assessment so that we can more clearly identify, hey, is this the right person? Are they in the right seat? Is this a good move moving forward? And then we have a little trial period. Sure. Here's adjustment. So we'll take 30 to 90 days and kind of work through kinks. And if things are still moving forward, then it's like, all right, let's go for it. And if not, then we make that break.
I gotcha. Man, I love that. And the personality test, is that something you guys created on your own, or is that something you guys are like certified or doing?
Yeah. So this is, it's called the Clifton Strengths.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Strength finders. Yeah. So I've taken a handful of personality assessments, and I know there's a lot of other ones out there. This one though was the first time I took one, and I was like, holy shit, this is me. Like, this is like, I was reading through, it was 177 questions, and it spit out a 25-page report of me. And I was reading through the results, and I was like, okay, I knew this about myself, but I didn't know about this about myself. How did this figure out this about me? And it was just based on how I was answering these questions. So phenomenal. And so we take everyone through that, because we're able to identify their top strengths, and depending on the needs of the team, it's like, hey, would Erik be a good fit here, or would he be better off on those strengths, maybe at the front lines doing investor relations or talking to potential investors and working leads, while somebody who's very organized and detailed might be better for the compliance and making sure the regulatory compliance and things that are involved with what we do in real estate is in check.
Yeah. Oh man, so good, dude. And I think going along the lines of personality tests and attitudes, like mindset is huge, I think, for anyone to be successful.
100%.
Right. And you talk about this thing, like what comes first, the mindset or the millions? Like, can you deep dive into that? Because I'd never looked at it that way before. And when I saw that, I was like, dude, that's such an important thing to look at.
When I jumped into real estate full time, I got blindsided. I got blindsided by what was required of me as an individual. Up to that point, and anyone, I mean, most people working W-2 jobs, you show up, you know what you got to do. You've got a checklist, especially in my case. I'd show up to the hospital and it's like, hey, here are your patients. Here's a checklist. Just knock everything out.
Yep.
And it's not, I mean, it required some thinking, and especially in surprise situations. But when I jumped into business for myself, nobody was telling me what to do. And so I got blindsided by the lack of personal growth and development. And so for the first 6 months, I had to go through this big, humbling and revealing experience of just realizing like there's a lot that I don't know. And and it all started with mindset and just believing that I could do it. Even having that courage to leave my comfortable cush W-2 job, certain income, to jump into something unknown, that was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do. And fortunately, my wife, absolutely incredible. She's not involved in the business directly, but always supportive from day one. And so when I talk about what comes first, the mindset or the millions, I think people that are newer to the space or want to get into business, it's easy to say, yeah, look at Erik, look at Dallon. They have a positive mindset because they got millions or they're a millionaire, right?
Yeah.
And I think you and I can easily say that that is not the case. And I actually host a podcast called The Millionaire Mindset, Millionaire Mind. And we really focus on the journeys of these business owners, and you realize that it's really their mind that they had in check first. And then the money, the financial gains, that was a byproduct because of what they created with their mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's a notion a lot of people that aren't in the space fully comprehend or understand. Like, if you're not in the right mindset, there's no way you're going to get to where you need to get to.
Yeah. Oh, it's so huge, man. You know, I had a conversation with Ed Milet on my show a while back. And, you know, one of the things he talks about is like, look, if you're not happy poor, you're certainly not gonna be happy as a millionaire, right? Like
Right.
You've got to have like the mindset of like getting through the grit, and then like like you said, man, the money will come, but like stay in that positive attitude. And I think it's important to really start the day off with, you know, wins. I'm 44. So when I wake up each day, if I open my eyes, I go, oh man, thank you, Jesus, for another day to see and hug and hold my family, like win number one, right? And then make the bed. There's 2 wins. So stacking those wins, having that positive mindset throughout the day, man, just massive. I love that you brought up your podcast because people need to listen to your show. This is such a great show, man. Man, seriously, so good. I love talking to other podcasters, just because, one, I think we're a different species and it's such a small world, right? Like podcast for me has been massive in relationships and partnerships and collaborations and all that fun stuff. But for you as a podcaster, why did you decide to start that thing? And what has been the biggest benefit for you having that podcast?
To be honest, I never wanted to do a podcast. Okay. I was always that person that was like, "Hey, that's not me. I don't have the radio voice. I'll never do it. I don't have anything of value to share." And I remember having that conversation a few years back, and now here I am, not even a year into it, and we're ranked in the top 5% globally based on reviews and ratings, and it's been an incredible journey. So I share that because I didn't want to do it, and here I am doing it. And that's, again, one of those mindset things. I got out of my comfort zone and moved forward with it. But one of the reasons that really inspired that, I shared very briefly, just the struggles I had transitioning into full-time entrepreneurship. Nobody was telling me what to do anymore. And I think it's easy to look at successful business owners and be like, oh, they got lucky. They were gifted. Dallon just shared his grandpa helped him get into his first deal, right? Like, yes, I'm not discrediting those little wins and lucky things that happen, but most business owners, and when I say most, I'd say probably 99.8.9% are people that had a vision, saw an opportunity, and they made it happen, and they created a team and they made it happen. Very, very few people are just given opportunities.
Yeah.
So on our podcast, we really focus on business owners. And now we've had business owners on there that have generated anywhere from $1 million a year in revenue upwards to $100 million a year in revenue. And these are people that if you walked by them on the street, you would have no freaking clue. No freaking clue, because that's just the type of people that they are. And they're some of the most generous people that are just willing to educate and serve and just help others in the space. So the podcast, a couple things, it's helped me connect with incredible like-minded people. Once you get into the space of entrepreneurship, you feel like your eyes get opened up and you're introduced to this whole new world. And two, it's helped and inspired some of our listeners to actually go out and start their own businesses as well, because our format is like this. It's very casual, conversational. Just share with us your journey. And when these very, very successful business owners share their successes and what they went through and their heartache and trials and losing love, whatever it is that they went through, listeners can relate. They can relate and they say, okay, if that's what Dallon went through and I'm in the medical field, maybe I can do it as well. And just being able to spark that little bit of hope and the idea and like the why not? Why can't that be me? Has been a really neat experience. So it's helped me expand my network tremendously, but also helped listeners just get out of their comfort zone a little bit and realize that, hey, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. I mean, podcasting, it's such a like this intimate conversation where listeners get it kind of be ninjas and sneak in and listen to this conversation that we're having, right? And then hopefully go out and hopefully implement what they're listening to. And man, it, like you said, there's so much great stuff that comes out of podcasting. And I look at it with all of that stuff, but almost as a legacy thing for me. Like, I wish that I could go back 3-4 generations deep and hear my grandfather speak and tell me his story. I can't do that, but I sure as heck can do that for my future tribe, right? They can look back and, go, man, Grandpa Erik, he was a rock star. He did all the podcasts. Like get to hear my story from me directly. And man, podcasting is not only the business side, but it's a legacy thing for me, man. That's so huge.
I love that.
Man, you and I were both speaking at an event up here in Coeur d'Alene, March 7th through 10th, the Conscious Investor Growth Summit. I'm really excited about this. Julie Holly, one of those people that was on my podcast. I was on her podcast, just opened up the opportunity for me to come and speak. I'm excited to hear you speak. When you come up to speak, like, what are you going to be kind of sharing with the with the attendees there?
Yeah, so there's the introduction of AI and technology into the entrepreneur space has been absolutely incredible. And I listen, I'm not a tech guy. I'm a real estate guy. I'm very simple-minded. I like putting my money where I can touch it, I can see it. I like tangible assets. But I can't ignore all these tools that are coming into the space. And so what I'll actually be speaking on is really taking systematic approaches, but integrating automation into our business. And now our business, we're real estate investors. We now operate a multi-million-dollar fund and we invest into large apartments. And so the people we work with are investors, people that trust us with their hard-earned capital, and we diversify it into apartments. Now, these people are investing anywhere from $50,000 to $500,000 a pop. And so this isn't a put a little ad out on Facebook and somebody's going to invest 50,000K. Like there's a different process to it. And so, which requires a lot of manual nurturing and touching and calls and emails and things like that. But what we realize is that the front end of that, I'll call it a funnel, right? Or that lead nurturing. A lot of that is just them, how do I put this? Like lurking. right? Like
Right.
we're all on social media. We all lurk, right? Someone's going to hear me on this podcast and they're going to look on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook and they're going to lurk. They're just going to, they're going to watch and they're going to observe. And then once they feel like they've got to know me enough, then they might reach out.
Yeah.
And this has happened. I've had friends from high school I haven't talked to in years. And they're like, hey, Dallon, I've been watching what you've been doing in real estate. I'd love to jump on a call. It's something I'm interested in as well. So what I'm going to be talking about at the conference is how to really integrate a lot of this automation and stuff, not to replace that personal touch. Because my personal belief is that with where we're going with technology, where we're going with AI, the art of personal connection is going to be lost. Because people online, they're not going to know if it's an AI video of you and me doing this podcast, if it's even our voices doing it.
Right.
So this is my thoughts, that a lot of business is going to start swinging the other way, meaning people are going to want to meet in person, shake hands, do it the old school way. Now, with that being said, I still think there's a time and place for all this technology. So I'm just going to be talking about how we've been able to integrate it into a portion of our business to accelerate and expedite the ability to then connect with these people more personally.
Come on. Oh, dude, that's so good. So good. I'm excited for that, man. And yeah, AI is massive. I love to finish the show with a fun question. I'm a big music guy, so I've asked the question, like, what type of music do you like to listen to, or what band is your favorite band?
What kind of music? Oh gosh, I listen to a little bit of everything. It really depends on the type of mood I'm in.
Okay.
But I got to go back to the punk rock music that I was always big into. Sum 41 and
dude, so
you
good.
know, some Green Day and like 4 Years Strong. That's like my go-to music when I'm vibing, I'm in a good mood, when I'm working out, exercising, when I'm just looking to decompress.
So good, man. I love the punk music is for me, man. And like when my wife and I got married, I said, you can do anything in the wedding. Don't give me Pink. And we're going to walk out to MXPX. And that was the only 2 requests I had. And so when they announced us, we had last day or first day of the rest of our lives play, and like just rocked out the whole church. All the grandmas were like, what the heck's going on? But I was like, those are the only 2 requests I have. You can do anything else you want. Like,
I love it.
That was awesome. Dude, Dallon, this was such a great conversation, man. You're an absolute world changer, man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, man. Looking forward to meeting you in just a few months. And man, thank you again for what you do.
Likewise, Erik. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for checking out the show today. I really appreciate it. I hope that my guest was able to bring you some amazing wisdom and knowledge to help you continue to fight for your goals, your dreams, and your purpose. If you could do me one big favor and just hit that subscribe button, I would so appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. Keep changing the world. I believe in you. Have an amazing day.